It didn't arrive with the echo of a royal proclamation or the ring of a ceremonial bell. It arrived sounding like something far more unsettling, a ghost. In October 2025, on a dull, overcast morning in New York City, a mailroom employee at ABC News was going through the usual flood of envelopes and promotional packages when something unusual caught their eye. A strange, unmarked box. No postage, no postmark, only a rushed handwritten note in faint ink that read, "Special News Section. Open immediately." Inside, tucked beneath layers of protective wrapping, was an old, weathered leather journal. Its pages weren't just aged, they looked stained by the anxiety and strain of whoever had written in them. Alongside it lay another note, written in a disturbing, trembling green ink. "I worked for them for years," it said. "They let me go because I heard things I was never meant to hear. I can't reveal who I am, but I can't stay silent anymore." This wasn't simply a diary. It was a confession, one that threatened to ignite global attention. As investigators would soon uncover, the author was an elderly housekeeper, once a trusted member of the inner staff at the sprawling Montecito estate. This was the $14 million California sanctuary where Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had begun their new life after stepping away from the British monarchy. To the outside world, the estate symbolized freedom and privacy, but for those within its walls, it operated more like a tightly controlled, high-security environment. Like anyone working close to global elites, the housekeeper had signed a strict non-disclosure agreement. In the world of the ultra-wealthy, NDAs aren't just routine paperwork. They're powerful legal tools, crafted by relentless legal teams to ensure silence at any cost. Breaking one doesn't just risk consequences. It invites financial ruin, endless lawsuits, and permanent exile from professional circles. Yet this woman made a decision that defied all logic. This wasn't simply revenge. It was desperation, deep and overwhelming. The secret she carried was too heavy to keep buried, too dangerous to remain hidden beneath the perfectly maintained grounds of Santa Barbara. This package was the first crack in a glass structure that had been carefully built over 6 years. As seasoned editors at the network began the painstaking process of verifying its contents, a deeply troubling narrative began to unfold. The journal wasn't filled with mundane entries about chores or errands. Instead, it read like a frantic, obsessive account of growing uncertainty inside the quiet halls of the Sussex residence. Every entry circled back to the same subject, the 2 children, Archie and Lilibet. The journal didn't begin with outright accusations. Instead, it painted a picture of a family under unbearable strain, pressure no ordinary person could endure. It suggested a household unraveling under the weight of a truth hidden just beneath their carefully curated public image. The housekeeper described nights when the vast, silent estate echoed with intense arguments from the master bedroom. She noted that the topic never changed, the origin of the children. In one particularly chilling entry, she recounted standing quietly in the hallway while delivering tea late at night. Through a door left slightly open, she heard Harry's voice, but it wasn't confident or composed. It was fragile, strained, a man on the edge of breaking. "Please, just tell me the truth, Meg," he pleaded. "I know something isn't right." The response, as she recorded it, offered no comfort. It was cold, controlled, almost calculated. "Harry, you need to stay quiet," Meghan reportedly said. "If this comes out, everything we've built will collapse." The fear in her voice wasn't the fear of a small secret being exposed. It was the fear of an entire reality unraveling. For Harry, a lifetime spent confronting truth in the public eye, such doubt would be devastating. His own story had shown how hidden truths can fracture families. To suspect that his new life might rest on uncertainty would cut deeper than any media scandal ever could. For Meghan, often seen as a master strategist who outmaneuvered centuries of royal tradition, This moment revealed someone struggling to contain a situation slipping beyond control. Just weeks after this recorded argument, the housekeeper was abruptly dismissed. No explanation beyond staff reduction. No severance. No reference. Just a final payment for silence, and a harsh reminder of the agreement she had signed. But her silence had become too costly. When the story finally surfaced, the global media didn't just respond. It erupted. Within an hour, #Sussex Secrets became the top trending topic worldwide. But this was far more than celebrity gossip. The claims in the journal struck at the very foundation of the British monarchy. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor stands 6th in line to the throne. Princess Lilibet Diana is 7th. These positions aren't symbolic. They are defined by centuries of law and constitutional tradition. News outlets quickly turned to constitutional experts, whose analysis painted a serious and troubling picture. The monarchy is built on one unshakable principle: bloodline. The Succession to the Crown Act of 2013 modernized certain rules, allowing for gender equality, but it did not alter the most critical requirement. An heir must be a direct biological descendant of the monarch. This principle has been so important that for centuries, the Home Secretary was required to be physically present at royal births to confirm legitimacy. Though that practice ended before King Charles was born, the legal importance never disappeared. Any doubt about the children's biological connection wouldn't remain a private matter. It would become an issue of national significance. If the journal's claims were true, the consequences would be seismic, far surpassing even the abdication crisis of 1936. Parliament would have no choice but to step in. Legal challenges would arise over the legitimacy of titles. And ultimately, the very credibility of the monarchy, built on an unbroken, legitimate line of succession, would be called into question. This was no longer just a story about a strained marriage tucked away in California. It had grown into something far bigger, a story about national stability and the future of one of the oldest institutions in the world. The housekeeper's journal hadn't simply revealed a secret. It had unlocked something far more dangerous, Pandora's box, and there was no sealing it shut again. As the public struggled to process the constitutional implications, a second, sharper shockwave rippled through the media. Journalists carefully analyzing the released excerpts began noticing a repeated detail: Harry's fixation on test results. The journal described multiple confrontations where he allegedly demanded to see the paperwork. This suggested the suspicion had gone beyond words. He had taken action. Soon, whispers began emerging from the elite medical circles of California. An anonymous source, a former technician at a high-end genetics clinic in Los Angeles, a facility catering to the ultra-private 1%, stepped forward. They recalled a sweltering summer day in 2022 when a close aide to Meghan Markle arrived at the clinic. The assistant appeared visibly tense, carrying a small insulated bag. Inside were 3 samples: a strand of Prince Harry's hair and saliva swabs from Archie and Lilibet. The instructions were highly discreet. A paternity and origin test was to be conducted immediately. The rules were strict: no digital trace, no cloud storage. The results were to be printed on a single sheet, sealed in an envelope, and delivered by hand. Afterward, every piece of electronic data tied to the test was to be erased completely, as if it had never existed. The source remembered the assistant's demeanor clearly. It wasn't typical celebrity anxiety. It was something deeper, colder, the kind of fear associated with handling something far more serious, almost like state secrets. This revelation added a deeply personal and painful dimension to the unfolding crisis. The idea that Prince Harry, a man who has openly expressed his love for his children, felt compelled to secretly test their DNA is profoundly unsettling. It suggests a level of mistrust and emotional conflict that's difficult for most people to comprehend. a man torn between his deep love for his family and a lingering, terrifying suspicion that the foundation of that family might not be what it seems. At the same time, leaked images of Meghan's private handwritten notes began circulating in tabloids. These weren't the polished messages shared publicly. They were raw, hurried writings, seemingly scribbled late at night under dim light. Harry asked about the results again. One note reportedly read, "He's losing trust. I need to keep him grounded. Reassure him everything is fine. We can't let this fall apart. For the children, for everything we've sacrificed." These weren't the words of someone at peace. They read like the thoughts of someone trying to contain a crisis. As the story spiraled beyond control, the Sussex PR operation, once powerful enough to challenge even Buckingham Palace, moved swiftly into action. Their strategy followed two clear paths: discredit the source and overwhelm the narrative. Within days, a coordinated wave of articles appeared across supportive media outlets. The former housekeeper was portrayed as a bitter ex-employee, dismissed for poor performance, and now seeking revenge. Tabloids with known ties to the Sussex camp dug into her past, highlighting minor disputes and old social media posts in an attempt to frame her as unreliable and attention-seeking. At the same time, the couple's social media accounts launched an intense family-focused campaign. Images flooded the internet, Harry laughing as he built sandcastles with Archie, Meghan embracing Lilibet beneath the olive trees of Santa Barbara. The captions carried a clear message: "We chose love and privacy. Thank you to those who continue to support our family." For a brief moment, it seemed effective. Their loyal fan base rallied, creating a strong wave of online support. But in today's media landscape, even the smallest miscalculation can undo everything. A close friend of Meghan's, speaking as a Hollywood insider, gave a statement to a major magazine in an attempt to shut down the DNA speculation. They conducted private tests on both children to silence those rumors, the insider claimed. The results were completely clear. There's nothing to worry about. The intention was to present them as proactive and transparent, but instead, it triggered the opposite reaction. Rather than calming public concern, it intensified it. The question spread rapidly across social media. Why conduct DNA tests at all? If everything was normal, why was there a need for secrecy? Why the erased data, the hidden process, the nervous assistant? On platforms like Reddit and Twitter, online investigators began piecing together timelines. They compared the dates of the alleged testing with Harry's public appearances. Many noted that in the weeks following the supposed lab visit, Harry appeared noticeably thinner, more fatigued, and emotionally distant in photos. By acknowledging that a secret test existed, they had unintentionally confirmed that there was something to hide. As scrutiny intensified around the issue of bloodline, attention shifted backward to Meghan's pregnancies. Details once accepted without question were now being re-examined through a far more critical lens. What had once appeared as strength and modern independence now seemed, to some, like inconsistencies that didn't quite align. People revisited footage from the 2018 royal tour of Australia. Clips were slowed down and analyzed. Meghan, reportedly heavily pregnant at the time, was seen bending easily, kneeling to speak with children, walking long distances, and navigating uneven terrain in high heels with apparent ease. Medical professionals began weighing in. Obstetricians appearing on major networks expressed skepticism. While every pregnancy differs, they noted that such sustained physical activity at that stage is uncommon and often not advised due to potential risks. Then came a closer examination of Harry's memoir, Spare. In it, he described Meghan's labor with Archie as particularly difficult, mentioning that the first epidural failed and a second was required. He presented it as a testament to her resilience, but medical experts interpreted it differently. Anesthesiologists explained that complications involving multiple epidurals can be serious, often leading to temporary paralysis from the waist down and severe headaches lasting days. Yet, just 48 hours later, Meghan appeared publicly at Windsor Castle, walking steadily in heels during a global press appearance. There were no visible signs of discomfort or recovery. An alleged source from London's Portland Hospital reportedly commented, "It's unrealistic. Recovery like that simply doesn't happen after such complications." What had once been praised as extraordinary strength was now being reinterpreted by some as a collection of puzzling inconsistencies, pieces of a narrative that didn't quite fit together. The idea of surrogacy, once dismissed as a fringe theory, quickly became, for many, the most plausible explanation. The theory suggested that Meghan may have continued her public appearances while a surrogate remained hidden, protected behind airtight legal agreements that could never be broken. The narrative of a natural pregnancy was beginning to feel less like reality and more like the most convincing performance of her life. As the conversation reached its boiling point, the final layer of defense around the couple didn't just weaken. It completely collapsed. A reputable independent news outlet confirmed and released a 1-minute audio recording. It had reportedly been secretly captured by the dismissed housekeeper, recorded from just outside the master bedroom. The audio was unclear, distorted, but the emotion within it was unmistakable. Harry's voice comes first, sharp, strained, cracking under the weight of anger and pain. "From the very beginning, you've been hiding this from me," he shouts. "Even before we announced the first pregnancy, am I their father or just someone you deceived?" The anguish in his voice was raw, undeniable. It sounded like a man watching his entire world collapse in real time. Meghan's response, as captured in the recording, wasn't a clear denial. Instead, it sounded urgent, almost desperate, an attempt to contain the situation spiraling out of control. "Harry, you don't understand," she says, her voice shaking. "This was the only way to protect them. If this gets out, we lose everything." The recording ends abruptly. Something heavy crashes, followed by hurried footsteps, a door slamming shut, and then silence. The audio spread across the internet within minutes. Within hours, millions had heard it. Public sentiment shifted instantly from uncertainty to outrage, and toward Harry, a wave of sympathy. He was no longer viewed as a participant in the situation, but as its central victim, a man who had walked away from his country, his family, and his identity, only to face what many saw as a devastating betrayal. Hours later, Harry posted a short, unfiltered message on his personal social media account. "My family is going through the most difficult period we've ever faced. Please respect our privacy." It wasn't a denial. It read like a plea from someone clearly overwhelmed. Shortly after, Meghan's legal team issued a sharply worded statement, dismissing the allegations as completely false and part of a coordinated smear campaign by long-standing critics. Legal action was threatened against all parties involved, but by then it no longer mattered. Public reaction had already surged beyond control. Headlines around the world carried the same story, Harry's pain, and the collapse of what once looked like a modern fairy tale. The situation had taken on a life of its own, unstoppable and destructive, tearing through everything the Sussexes had built. The consequences were immediate and severe. The Sussex brand, once valued in the hundreds of millions, began to unravel within days. Netflix, heavily invested in the couple, released a brief, measured statement. "We are reviewing all current and future collaborations." The message was clear. Spotify, which had signed a $20 million deal with them, confirmed it would not be renewed and quietly removed past content. Luxury fashion houses that once competed to dress Meghan began distancing themselves rapidly. A major cosmetics brand ended its partnership outright. An Italian fashion label suspended all ties indefinitely. Funding for the Archwell Foundation began to dry up as major donors publicly withdrew their support. Even within progressive circles, where Meghan had once been widely supported, opinion fractured. Many began questioning whether they had been backing a narrative that wasn't entirely genuine. But the most significant blow came from the United Kingdom. Buckingham Palace, which had remained carefully silent until now, released a short but impactful statement. The royal family is monitoring the situation closely. In royal terms, that single sentence spoke volumes. It signaled that the issue had escalated beyond private concern. It had become a matter requiring serious institutional attention. The question of succession was no longer theoretical. It had become a constitutional issue. Back in Montecito, the couple's picturesque estate had turned into something far more isolating, a gilded cage. Long-lens paparazzi photos showed Harry sitting alone by the pool late into the night, staring into darkness. He began making quiet, unannounced trips back to the UK, always alone. He was seen walking in London alongside Prince William and King Charles. His appearance had changed, noticeably thinner, his expression distant, almost hollow. Meghan was never with him. Behind the scenes, their legal teams worked relentlessly. But this was no longer just about public relations. It had evolved into something far more serious. Potential battles over custody, finances, and even identity itself. There was no dramatic courtroom climax. No emotional confession that neatly resolved everything. After months of relentless chaos, the storm finally began to fade, leaving behind a landscape that felt completely shattered. Harry and Meghan vanished almost entirely from public life. The major contracts were gone. Their global platform had disappeared. The Archwell website still existed, but it had become a hollow version of what it once was, reduced to showcasing small local efforts. Harry gradually started spending more time in the UK, finding a quiet, fragile sense of familiarity with the family he had once walked away from. Occasionally, he was spotted in the private gardens of Windsor, gently pushing his children on the swings. He didn't look happy, but he looked at peace. He stopped speaking to the media altogether, except for a short message posted on his children's birthdays. Thank you to those who continue to respect my children's privacy. Notably, there was no mention of his wife, and that silence spoke volumes. Meghan, meanwhile, remained in Montecito, living a reclusive life behind the tall gates of their estate. Reports suggested she attempted a return through a series of reflective writings focused on healing, but the response was indifferent at best. Many dismissed it. Others ignored it entirely. The figure once celebrated as a feminist icon had, in the eyes of many, transformed into something else, a cautionary example of how powerful narratives can be and how devastating their collapse can become. When it was all over, the world simply moved on. The Sussex story didn't end with a dramatic explosion. Instead, it faded slowly, painfully, into silence. In a matter of months, years of effort unraveled completely. A love story that once captivated the entire world came undone, weighed down by a truth too heavy to sustain. And in the quiet that followed, 2 children, 6th and 7th in line to the British throne, were left to grow up surrounded by a question that may never fully be answered. The mystery of the Montecito Journal would remain, shaping their lives in ways no one could predict. Thank you for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments, and goodbye for now.